Make sure I incorporate all your questions. Save them on the document.
Also,
I keep saving them and putting them in separate files.
We always got them.
Barbara, oh, yeah.
You haven't met Barbara?
Barbara, D.D., Barbara, yeah. Like that.
We good to roll? All set?
Yeah, if I can, if there's anything.
So, good morning still, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for the meeting of May 6, 2025 of the Penobscot County Commission. At this point, I will call the roll. Commissioner Tremble. Here. Commissioner Marshall. Here. Mr. Treasurer. Here. And the chair is here. I have asked Barbara Vale if she would be kind enough to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we did have an executive session on the agenda, but we don't feel that there's anything of a contractual matter that we need to go into executive session for. So if you're all comfortable, we will remain in public session for this portion. And we are a little different. We're sitting at the table here, so some of you are viewing the back of our heads, but why don't we go around the room? And Dee, if you want to start and introduce yourself, that would be great, and then we'll move on to Commissioner Marshall. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dee Williams. I represent Main Street Finance, a subsidiary of Penobscot. I serve on the committee in a review presence, and I present to the commissioners when we have requests that come into the committee.
Dave Marshall, Penobscot County, Third District.
I'm Andre Cushing. I'm the chair and serve District 2, Southern Penobscot.
Dan Trumbull, Commissioner 1 District.
Glenn?
Glenn Moore, County Treasurer.
Barbara Bayou, former UT Director, retired, but back to the TIF committee.
Brent Folster, retired, and I'm a member of the committee.
Greg Fuller, not retired. And member of the committee.
George Buswell, current director of the Unorganized Territories and the chair of the TIF committee. And I want to thank our TIF committee members for coming in today. This is a well overdue meeting that we need to have, and we've got a new county commissioner, and we've got a new member to our board, though she's the lady who set the TIF up years ago, but she's new to this process. So it's a good day to move forward.
Did we need to formally approve her to committee, or is that?
Nope, we've already voted her in.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thanks for your help on this.
And Scott Atkins.
Oh, sorry, Scott Atkins, County Administrator.
So who wants to lead the show?
If you don't mind, I'll
Take it away.
I haven't slept for 3 days thinking about it, so. No, we put together the agenda for today based off questions from the commissioners over time. We've kept track of some of the questions the commissioners have had and some of the TIF committee members have had. So we put them all together in here so we can do a slight review going backwards, where we started, where we've gone, and then from here forward, what are we going to do and what are the commissioners' wishes going forward. Things have changed slightly in what is anticipated out of the TIF fund. Okay, so we've done introductions. The first thing we'll review should be in your packet. It's going to look like this.
The letter from the Department of Economic Community Development related to the unorganized.
That's our actually original approved TIF district rules and regulations.
Okay.
And everything that we do comes from this. The reviews that we had Redmond and Winchell do, because our lawyers, Redmond and Winchell, originally set this up with us. Barbara and Noreen Norton were originally set this thing up with Redmond and Winchell all those years ago. So after 9 years, it's a good chance to do a good review on where we've been and where we're going. So if you had any questions on this particular, I know Danny wanted to see the original TIF application when he first came on. And it's easy to understand when you work with it every day, but it's a bit awkward if you don't. So.
Understood. So there is a basic format that is negotiated with the state for approval of a TIF district.
Yeah.
And parameters within that which you can use the funds for.
Right. And there is a TIF district, and then there are things you can do outside of the actual listed TIF district. So the yellow that you see on the back pages, if they're still yellow for you guys, probably they're not. Or you got a yellow tint.
Yeah.
That's the actual district. The other colors are outside of the actual TIF district expenditures.
Okay. And when you say outside, that would be services to the TIF district that,
Services within the unorganized territory that didn't get listed in the actual, in the TIF district, maybe Barbara can remember, we had to list the roads and the buildings and the services that we were inside the TIF district itself. So if we spend money on a road, it had to be listed in that district. You can't spend on a road that isn't in the district, isn't already assumed to be a part of this TIF application.
do we know if you can add to the list, or once it's approved, it is what it is?
Once it's approved, it is what it is. There is always an exception to every rule. You could refile and start all over again. But
Let's hold
As we-
on that, but it's something that I think would be helpful for the commission to understand is, but let's talk about what we have now and then talk about what you all think we might need to provide clarification on almost 10 years into the process.
Just a quick question related to your
Please.
last question. The dollar amount, can those be tweaked without going back, like something for economic development, 1.5 million, education training, 2 million. Can you go over in one and under in another without having to go back?
Review of the memo from Rubin and Winchell covers that. If we get to that point,
Okay.
we'll get to that exact question.
Okay. Proceed with whatever you would like to take.
Well, I wanted to be sure if there are any questions from the commission or the TIF district or the TIF members on what we're looking at, what our Bible that we've used up to this time. And these guys have done
Just call it
great.
a governing document, 'cause you
They've
can't change the Bible.
Well, they've done great to stay within the rules as we interpret them.
Sure. And of course, we've been very precise in what we've asked you to interpret them before, previously implemented.
We've been very precise, yes.
Okay.
The next thing we're going to review is this here. It looks like that. It's the budget. That's where we currently stand.
I'm not sure that we have a copy of that.
I don't have a copy.
I don't either.
Fortunately, we have a copy machine right here, so
Yep.
this is going to be a simple solution.
So it's a little tough to review. If you can see it from here, we'll talk about
I think if we had 10 of those,
Trust
it'd be good stuff.
Feel very comfortable.
It's a good document to go back and look at what we've done up to this point, and we've tracked all the expenses. And there's some estimated 2025 budget projections in there, things that may or may not come up in front of us. The ones we've heard rumors of, and the ones we know about are listed as expenditures, or expenditures possibly, based off what happens in the future. So we did put the budget together with all that in mind when we do this, but actually I think you're gonna see some documents that Barbara put together, and we still copy some of her template that she made all those years ago, so
Gosh,
must be
darn.
working. Must be working, Bob.
Did something right, huh?
Well, those figures you have, those for the 25 applications or requests from the various sports organizations in the district? or-
The ones we've heard rumors of, people who have called and asked questions about how do we apply, what can we apply for, what do I need to know about application. If they've asked us any questions, I've included.
We have
it.
some in the works already that have already been submitted.
We have 2 in the works already. One of them is an application from our own PRCC to help support the cost of a tower in the unorganized territories. The other one is, you remember a few years ago, we bought a remote rescue vehicle and trailer for the town of Patton Ambulance, who we have contracts with. And they've asked now for the truck to haul that trailer and piece of equipment. So we have that application in front of us. But I didn't want to have a TIF meeting and discuss those two applications until we got here today to see what's new or different in your world and ours.
While we're waiting for that, would it be helpful for Dee or the committee members to share some of their questions, or do you have another place
I
on
would,
the agenda?
I would like to hear from all of them. They've been on the board quite a while, and they've seen them come and go. So we've had some good applications and some bad ones. I'd let Dee, if she's got anything she wants to add.
I agree. My biggest question is the difference between the grants versus the loans, because that's obviously where my role comes to play. Up to this point, everything's been decided as a grant, a one-time fund versus a loan, and that seems to be the requests that come in the loan process against other lenders out there is pretty significant. So I think there needs to be a discussion about how do we want to approach those going forward. Do we want to pose the loan option? Do we want to push the loan option? Do we want to continue with the grant option and eliminate the loan portion of the work? So that's.
Does Mainstream work with any other counties related, or any other entities related to TIF districts?
No, we do not.
Do you gentlemen have any experience with other TIF programs?
I'm just gonna comment on that. I think
Keep one past.
there's also a point, a bullet point in here about if we continue just for both nonprofit and profit, for profit or nonprofit. And I think if we were to continue the option for profit, that might be the loan option. If somebody needs gap financing, maybe that might be a good use for the TIF to step in. But I think, other than that, I wouldn't be a big proponent of having grants to for-profit entities. Maybe that's a situation where you could do a loan.
So I think we need 2 or 3 more of these.
We included that in the agenda because that's a real topic of conversation amongst us.
Loans to organizations for profit.
For-profit, grants versus loans, for-profit, or loans at all. Do you want to use this?
But no for-profit entities have gotten any funds so far from TIF.
Not yet.
Right.
Did we do anything
Well,
at Hammond Ridge?
We haven't done anything at Hammond Ridge yet, other than putting a bike trail for them, but they paid a portion of that. And we paid a portion of that. That was back when Barbara was here, we did a bike trail.
Can you recollect any other
I
for-profits?
can't.
We did a movie for the greater Millinocket area with New England Outdoor out of ESPN, NESPN, or whatever the sports channel is down there.
And sports program network.
Yeah, New England Sports, we did it with them. It was $49,000, you'll see it in the budget. That might have been a for-profit, I'm sure that TV channel was for-profit. We gave them a grant to do this TV show that worked out to be, I don't know if it was a half hour or an hour, I think it was a half hour, but and it highlighted all of the unorganized territory businesses that they could find that wanted to work with them. It went really well, it was a good show.
So I mean, even though it went to a for-profit, I mean, benefits, it doesn't really, it mostly benefits tourism in the UT.
Tourism in the UT is what was the top.
You know what year that was, Joe?
I don't, but we can get you that.
The majority of requests that come in are usually from the municipalities or members within the UT looking for a one-time grant of funding. It's not, the loan option is rarely if ever discussed, so.
It's so time-consuming.
It is very.
Pay it back, right?
You know, and I think that the funds to pay it back become the issue with most of these municipalities. They're looking for the hand up and the handout at the same time.
So if I'm looking at this chart correctly, and I think pretty much everyone has a copy now, or,
Yep. allocation,
estimate is 15 million.
the estimate for the total project over 30 years is 15 million.
How much have we accumulated to date, roughly?
Whatever's left there, plus the expenditures is what's been accumulated. At the bottom of the page for the expenditures,
Is 2.5.
2.5,
11.9.
and we've got
We've got 2.6.
2.6.
Well, we don't have 11.9 in the bank.
5.1.
What I'm
At the
asking,
very top, you'll see where it says funding on hand.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
thank you, okay.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So we have at this point still roughly $2.7 million
Yes.
In the
in the
bank,
fund.
including all the interest that's been gained over time.
Okay,
Interest last year alone in 2024 was about $100,000.
How much of that, how much more are we gonna get back from the feds on the Argonne landslide thing? That's temporarily,
that's not TIF though.
Yes,
just,
yes, hazard mitigation out of the
For
tip.
for the cash flow, yeah.
so if we put up $1 million up front, we get how much?
No, the whole project's only 275,000, 280,000. But the federal government will pay 75% of that, the landowner will pay 10% of that, and then we're gonna pay 15% of that, but mostly out of in-kind. Our time and energy and our mileage and meetings and what have you, all fit the in-kind. So out of pocket's probably gonna be less than $5,000
And that will come from TIF.
from TIF, from the hazard mitigation section of the TIF.
So we've got roughly, as of today, 2.7, and we've expended 2.5.
Yeah.
So that means that we've accumulated a total of 5.2. Thank you.
Which we're ahead by 500,000 over what they estimated when they started the TIF, from what they thought they were gonna, because we only get 90% of the value of those windmills, we only get the 90%. And so far, we've received like a little over $500,000 more than they anticipated at 2024.
So
It's
10
gonna be
years,
annually, we get a check annually on that.
When they bill the wind farm for their taxes, the Maine Revenue Service sends us 90% of that after they get paid.
so roughly 10 years in, we've received about a third of the projected revenues.
Right. Yeah. I don't know when, but at some point, it depreciates a lot faster than it has been. So we would expect those to drop over time.
So we should not anticipate having $15 million.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do we have any estimate of what other projects with TIPs have?
You're closer to that than I am.
Yeah, I had minimal experience, and it was year 12 or year 13, somewhere around there, and it was a rather substantial reduction. To the point where, if I recall right, that at the end, they were gonna get maybe 60 to 62% of what their total, so if you were looking at 15 million, total of their original number.
So we would be safer to estimate somewhere in the vicinity of 10 million being the lifespan of the project as opposed to 15.
The total estimated revenues,
I think it would be safe,
it would be safe.
yeah. We'd know more probably in a couple of years or so, yeah.
So based on where we're at right now, having received over 5 within 10 years, then in the next 20 years, we're looking at potentially
Between
a
5 and
maximum of 5 or 6 million. Okay.
Thanks.
So that kind of frames what we should look at in terms of if we have a 20-year commitment to fill some of these pots, when do we start to look at things on a loan basis if we're going to extend the life of the resource? Does that make sense?
Well, let's look at, are we gonna do loans?
Well, it does, but
I'm just talking,
I see what you're saying.
planning, because there comes a point where you have less money to work with, but you're you've got some people who are anticipating things, so I'd like to start developing the expectation that this is not free money forever.
Which is something that Dee mentioned that we've had concerns about right along is how often do people come back to the well for monies? And we've experienced that, like, oh, this is free money. Next year we had another request from them, and we've had to limit that. But we've limited it really within us in presentation to you folks, and the fact that you need to have some skin in the game here. It might be free money, but nothing's free, you know? And so therefore, as we look at it, how much do we finance the project? I mean, that has also been our concern is, you know, you need to, I'll go back to use the term, some skin in the game. Do we only finance 75%? Do we only finance 60%, depending on what the dollar amount is? I mean, we have to have some flexibility in our discussion and then presentation to you folks for approval as to, okay, it's a larger project using the bucket of money. We're gonna limit, you know, what we are gonna particularly do for that particular project, which is when it's being sold, and I'll use that term, I was a former banker, sold to the client. Sold to the client in the fact that, you know, they need to come up with their own financing for part of it, fundraising, grant making, whatever that might be. And some of them, they haven't thought about it, they haven't whatever, because they were with the understanding that they could get 100% from this pot of money. And some have been a little miffed in the fact that we weren't granting 100% of the project, and they had to go look elsewhere for funding. But again, we were trying to be good stewards within the guidelines of what the TIF was set up with, which didn't really talk about that, and that became more within the group as to, and presentation to the commissioners as to what, you know, do you want to finance 100%? Do you want to only finance 80%, 70%, 75%? You know, and again, it depends on what it is.
So really what you're looking for as the committee of oversight is what we as the county want to set for goals now that we've got 10 years under our belt. And we know that there's an end to the rainbow and there may not be a pot of gold there.
And that, you know, you have $5 million and suppose approximate to come in, and you have X amount of years left, you know.
And there are,
how do we stretch it?
Yeah.
And Dee mentioned, you know, we have mentioned loans before, and it was like, no, I don't want a loan. I want free money.
Right.
And, you know.
Yeah. But we have some pressing needs at the county level too that are coming up. So I've got my thoughts on this, but I mean, we've already blown through some of the initial criteria, which was a maximum of $100,000. You couldn't come back to the well. That's long gone.
Right.
Remember, that wasn't part of the original charter for that. That was developed by all of
The
us.
committee, internal.
Right, that was one of the first committees set up a maximum of 100,000. And then we blew through that on the very first note when we built the dam up there. We went over 100,000 for the dam. So that wasn't part of the working charter for the TIF. That was
Right,
our
but
own.
it was part of the directive to the committee.
From you
the
guys at
commission.
that time, yes.
Well, I wasn't here.
Yeah,
You might have been here.
I wasn't here.
Danny might have been in the audience.
What does the committee, the internal committee think about, you know, the bite on the apple on these major projects? I mean, initially, they're going to limit it to one. Obviously, that has not been the case.
No, we've had several, Snowmobile Club just outside of Millinocket has been back. many, many times. The dam came back a couple of times.
In those projects, George, was there it wasn't 100% funding on these projects? I mean,
Some were 100%.
some were 100% and
funding.
they've come back again.
Yeah. Originally, we've done it that way, but the last 2 years or more, we've wanted them to have a bite of the apple. They had to have something invested. They had to stop coming to us every time they needed something without at least having some investment. So we made those changes with some guidance from the commissioners at the time, so.
Fragmented guidance, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the point of today, is to get more strategic, effective guidance from you guys, so that as we're reviewing these, we're setting the same guidelines, if you will, for each requester. I think it's important for, the preservation of the funds and the work we do, that it's important to set the same criteria for everybody asking, regardless of their affiliation, relation, we've gotten this before, what was expected, or what they've done, what we've done before. Well, you gave me this. I think it just needs to be set. This is what it is. This is what they're expecting to see. This is how we move forward, I think.
And I think it can be explained that program guidelines do change over a period of time,
Exactly.
period. You might have 4 years ago gotten 100% financing, but we've looked at the longevity of the fund and the availability down the road, and we're now back to what we agreed to is the maximum.
Mitigation of the economic realities falls down is going to have a reassessment. And that reassessment's going to have to be a lot more critical and selective, and I think it should entail skin on the part of every organization. I don't know, I can't say because I can't think right offhand what might qualify, but I think every organization has skin in the game. And going forward, we need to clarify that point with everybody.
Correct.
Incorporate it into our application form. And also, we need to visit the idea of how many times they can come back to the well.
Right.
Because if that's the case, everybody draws everything off, there's nothing left at the end. Those who are equally deserving just didn't get into the shooting time.
Can they come back, but it has to be a minimum of 3 years from the last approved project, or whatever that case might be, But as we sat here, we've done some fire trucks, and we've done some ambulances, and it's like, all of a sudden, 2 months later, 3 months later, we get another fire truck request, or we have another ambulance request, because.
You'd almost think those chiefs were talking.
Yeah, yeah, and so therefore, and it tugs at your heart your heartstrings as to, do we finance, and again, a fire truck, for all of those financed fire trucks, we don't know what they cost, and the grant side of it is drying up some, and so therefore, the municipalities or the unorganized territories trying to come up with that money.
Sure, and I can respect, the core needs, and I think, speaking for myself, we need to identify what things would fall within the parameters of what this money could be used for, and what things fall outside of that, and whether any of those would be brought up for consideration if they don't automatically fall within the purview of this. So if we started with that level of guidance, I guess one of the questions that has popped into my mind is, do we have a list of what plantations are in the TIF district now?
We have all that.
Okay.
When we do a fire truck or an ambulance or a piece of apparatus for a service like that, we try to prorate our share of that. If we can't do 100% in Howland for a fire truck, if you will, because we're only a portion of that. So we have to find a proration share that we believe is correct. And if you use population or acreage or number of homes, there's always a way you can prorate that so that the unorganized territory only pays a prorated share of whatever that is.
Have you
But
kind
then
of
again-
documented that, or is that just a case by case?
Yeah, it's in every minutes of every meeting, yeah, but
Most of them can provide us calls.
calls help too.
Right.
That's how, like in Mount Chase, we've done more for them than we have some other departments on a larger prorational share, but they also cover a lot more townships than anybody
Geography,
else.
yeah, much more geography.
A larger area that they help us with.
This kind of ties in, I also am serving in the role as president for Maine County Commissioners Association. And one of our goals this year is to look at ways that we have more collaborative efforts. We don't want to regionalize, because that's a bad word, but if we collaborate. For example, you're familiar, I think, with what happened in the Holland area in the formation of that fire EMS district. And that has proven to be, for them, a successful model. That will not necessarily work everywhere, but there are opportunities to have those discussions about how can we provide the level of service that is necessary without everybody getting their own equipment. And so I see some of these TIF funds as being incentives for those who want to collaborate. So in the discussion, I think we need to set a threshold that says, if you're serving more than one area with this and you have contractual arrangements for a period of time, then we will look at this at a different level of funding than we will if you're looking at it from an independent basis. I think
That brings up, excuse me,
Sure.
another
No.
point about, say they decide they're not gonna have a contract with us later, but now they have the truck.
well, that has never happened.
We need to have some kind of
Just for the ambulance.
payback if you don't do this for a certain period of time. We had to do that when we did the Kingman Fire Station.
Yep.
You don't want to just keep a set of keys, Barb, and go get it?
Go get it.
Maybe. Probably have to take some training.
Along those same lines, one little thing we have done is, you can't really do it on a fire truck or an ambulance, but, or we might be able to, but we bought the Jaws of Life for a fire department that services the unorganized territories, but we own them. We own them. So if anything happens to the contract in the future, we could supposedly take our toys and go home. So it gives us a hand that we didn't have, a foot in the door we never had, by owning some of the smaller equipment.
Or be a
Which
lien
is-
holder on a fire truck,
We could do the same thing if we paid for a large enough portion of the fire truck. It might be worth it to us to pay a little more and gain a lot more support down the road, so those contracts don't dissolve.
Once they tie to the contract or an agreement to a much more reasonable growth factor each year.
Do you see a place where we would cap how much per year that we would offer in grants and or loans?
Just a total dollar amount per year, regardless of the number of projects that came, proposed projects that came before us.
That could have a chilling effect on how many people are coming just for grants. If they recognize that there's only so much money per year to allocate, and if they were to do a loan as opposed to a grant, there might be a different level of consideration in your decision-making, but it gives you some guidance to, instead of saying, well, you got $2.5 million, I only need $500,000, you'll still have $2 million left in your account. You know, I think we need to provide you some boundaries that allow you to make decisions not on who's done a better presentation, but within the context of what we have to deal with and what it means to extend for the full 20 years or maybe even beyond. How do we structure this? And it may be a little hard in some cases. We may need a clause that gives a certain amount of money, some flexibility. If you need another $100,000 this year, can we, as the commission, authorize you to do that? Is that?
The problems that I personally see with the loans, if we get in the loan business, is, first of all, you're now competing with businesses within your county. It's 3 times the administration on D's end to manage a loan now. And then what are you prepared to do as the county if you don't get paid?
Defaulting, what happens in the
Right.
case of a default?
Yep.
I'm sure that it never happened.
Well, I probably never would,
But
but
just in case.
I was gonna say, do I add repo gal to my
I can
contract?
see
There you
you
go.
being all over
Hey,
that.
we can take the fire truck lessons together.
Okay, sounds good.
So if we limit this, I say we limit it, looking at the projected end life of this project in the remaining years, we need to allocate a certain amount each year in order to make sure that there are funds available throughout the final, this project's end run. So if we have a limitation, whatever that may be, and we have, make sure they have skin in the game, and we address this idea about multiple bites at the apple, this begins to gives you some parameters in dealing with these applicants who may have multiple needs or one-time needs, and gives you really the direction that you need. Is that a fair assessment?
Because again, those are discussions we internally have had with every presentation, as to what do we do?
We've taken everything on a case-by-case basis up until now.
Yeah.
Also, you mentioned something a few minutes ago I wanted to revisit. In these cases where we provide ambulance or fire trucks on a prorated basis on the amount of people that were served in the unorganized territory, and something goes astray there, I think there should be a provision in there that clarifies that money is either is due back or some remuneration to the county if they fail to meet their contractual agreements with the county on that. Is that something you've considered?
We've talked briefly about it just recently, since we were burned. So we have nobody gets money without signing the TIF agreement. It's an actual document, documents what they can do, what they can't do, and what we say we'll do. That TIF agreement can be altered any way you want. So we could add a sentence or remove a sentence.
There needs to be teeth in that there has to be teeth in that for us to reclaim those funds or a portion of those funds for a breach of contract. So that it's absolutely clear that, these organizations or these groups of towns that enter into contractual negotiations are obligated to honor that other than face penalties that should be clearly defined in the TIF agreement.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
You can see my wheels spinning. How do you get funds from a municipality that doesn't have the funds to give you, but they have the truck? They have.
Well, that's the idea is, what do we do in that situation? And do we reclaim the truck? I mean, it's own portions of it. That's the rub there. And again, it's a situation where each applicant should have skin in the game. What happens when they fail? I don't know what the solution would be to that.
Or be required to sign a contract for 3, 5, however many years determined.
That's what I was thinking about the,
What was
You
that?
have to sign, if we're gonna give you $100,000 or $150,000 towards your new truck, for each amount of dollars, whether it's 50,000 or whatever you determine, that's a year contract. So if you want 150,000, you're gonna give us a guaranteed 3 years of service.
Right.
Yeah, that seems completely reasonable.
So I mentioned about the growth factor with that and establishing that so that we've got more,
But
like
make
we
it
ran
the
into.
same for
Yes.
everybody,
Right.
so that we're setting the standard.
Yeah, it's a uniform standard so that,
Yep.
I think that's a sound policy.
So if we have a contract with a vendor or a town, we can put that language with assistance from legal. We can put that language in our agreement, in the TIF agreement, what they sign when they accept the money. So that's something we could research a little further. How would that work, and what would the legal language look like?
It may be easier to do it from the other direction. When you sign an agreement with a town, should you ever receive TIF funds? Conforming.
Or during the contract,
Right.
the contract
Right.
itself, yeah.
You do both ends,
Yeah.
yeah.
The
That's,
application for the Kingman Fire Department that we built, if you still have it somewhere, there is some of that language in that agreement, because we had to do that with them.
for the
For the fire
firefighters.
station.
But we own that one, correct?
We do now. We
Right, but
didn't.
we got a grant for that, and It was something like 5 years, I think, but you'd have to review that, but there was some language in there.
That was through USDA?
Yes, USDA.
I think the federal government has been burned on that a couple of times.
So getting back to the agenda,
Yep.
any more questions on the budget? If you can understand how it is, the allocations are what we believe we've estimated in the TIF request, in the original TIF document. Expended is what we spent out of that category so far year to date. Projections is what we might spend this year, and of course then the projected balance.
So you're projecting $500,000, a little over $500,000 in requests that you know of so far this year.
Well, like the Kingman salt sand shed, that's us, that's the I've just simply thrown a $300,000 number in there because we have some money accumulated for that, so I don't know what we would even need. But it's in the district and it fits the rules.
So what would be interesting to me is look at how much money the UT has historically needed to use from the TIF funds for things that benefit that portion of the UT or affiliated.
We have that breakdown. I don't have it with me, but we have that breakdown.
I think as we go forward, that would be helpful to me, because if we're considering that we may get another 5 million, so we've got a pool of about 7.5 to deal with here, if I'm
Solid, yeah.
Yep.
then we can start to structure that and say, over 20 years, how much do we want to have available? If you got, like I said, 7.5, we could divide it by 20 and say, this is how much we feel each year we would have available. If we did a portion of that in loans, then that could extend or increase the amount of money that we would have available in that pool to work with. So that would be option 2.
Keeping in mind the expense that comes with the loans, the administrative expense.
Sure.
Like these guys said, the service expense.
Yep. I think that's a factor that we need to weigh, but if the goal is to extend the use of these funds.
Hire me full-time to do this. Is that what you're saying, David?
I haven't said it, I've been thinking it.
No, it will be a lot of work. And I think that it is a good idea to be able to extend the monies and their ability to help, but at the end of the day,
Entails a
it's
tremendous
a lot
amount
of work.
work and.
In 9 years, we've had many requests. In 9 years, no one's ever asked for a loan.
Well, no, they're gonna get free.
We've gone back and said loan, and they've come back, well, we were looking for a grant, you did this for this entity or this
Well, if that money
municipality.
dries up, that may become an option that some may want to look into. But if they do, it really puts a whole new world of.
Well, half a loaf might be better than no loaf at all.
One of the issues we see with many of the requests is the back of the napkin documents that come with the request and the numbers, the balance sheets, and,
How do you give a loan to somebody who's showing a negative?
yeah.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure no banker has ever been faced with that question.
We throw it back to
I wanna go to
them.
your bank.
If it doesn't fit the grant process, we throw it back to them for a loan and nobody ever comes back.
Exactly.
And you don't even hear about it because they didn't even.
But we're faced with the reality that we have a certain reserve to deal with.
Right.
And we have, as we look at this, some ongoing broad-based resources. Salt and sand sheds or capital expenditures for the UT, particularly in the TIF area. Public safety. There's certainly an ongoing need and expectation for that. So I think if we inventory between ourselves, maybe what I see happening here is both groups, the commission and the TIF committee, go back based on some of these discussions, and we can either, maybe Tina or Scott, somebody can put an email together to send out from some of our notes and say, these are the things we want to consider. This is the information we need. Let's get together 60 days from now, whatever, and see if we can fresh out a format, have legal look at it, and then create a document that would go into the TIF applications to say, this is how we're gonna, starting in 2026, 10 years into this is the process. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone should put a TIF application in this year, so we'll have to have a bridge year policy, and then what the policy is for the next 10 years with maybe a sunset that says 10 years from now, the commission needs to look at this and consider what they want to do for the final 10 years.
Any more budget stuff? We can move on to the next.
No, feel free to move on, and do you have anything?
That was a conversation we wanted to have.
Thank you for having this, because this has been ongoing.
Now we'll
Well, ever
I
since
appreciate the
Ever since
conversation.
Dan has come, it's had greater expectations.
The next bullet point on the agenda is the findings on the use of UT TIF revenue. That's the shorter of the two Redmond Winchell notes. I should have numbered these things.
It's okay.
Anyway, it basically says, after review, we asked them the question, the question was posed whether the project cost paid the district revenue in accordance with approved district development program, table 1. Table 1 is basically listed, this is a budget, basically. That's the things listed in the back of it. And that's still required, are they still required to be prorated to only pay for the portion of the cost reduced to the unorganized territories, related to the unorganized territories. So the reason we asked that was because you said we've got to find a way to use these funds outside of the UT. So we asked them that exact question. And their answer was basically, we cannot use it outside of anything from the unorganized territories. We can only spend it in an organized town on a prorated basis, is basically what they said, which is
Under the terms of the current TIF.
under the terms of the current TIF, yeah. And again, I didn't ask them, can we close this one down and start a new one? I didn't ask them that.
Understood. But my understanding from people I've talked to familiar with the TIF process is you can file a new application to revise your TIF.
A change, yeah.
So that goes to a whole different subset of
We can
questions.
go back to the drawing board with our legal department.
We don't have to do that right now, but
No, but we will.
we've got a lot of wheels and pieces moving here, and
So that answered your specific question that you had for us a while back.
yep,
Thank you for that.
And the other Redmond Winchell, if you look at these categories, you'll see that we're running really short. But there's a thing under, they call it item 12 in the original UT. If you look at item, what is it, F? Yes, F. You'll see F on the front page. Almost to the-
county commissioners must notify state tax assessor by hearing all triggers are tapped.
We questioned, because we were running on economic development, we're running right on the edge of, we're gonna run out of money in that approved category amount. So the question was, can we overstep that, or can we move them numbers around inside the TIF? In other words, can we take part of the 4 million from the top and move it down to economic development?
So
'Cause
that you
we're
don't
gonna,
trigger any of those.
right, but those aren't the triggers that the TIFs look at. There are other triggers that the state looks at on that. This money that's in here, basically, if I read that correctly, basically says you can use that money anywhere within that category. These are just estimates of what that category is gonna spend. But it doesn't say when you get to 500,000, 550,000 economic development, you have to stop. Because that's not one of the triggers that they're watching. So one of the questions we had was, and the reason I brought the question forward is because we're gonna be running really tight on economic development because of the position that we support in the Millinocket area. And our contract with EMDC is up the end of this year.
That's 5 years.
No, we did our 5 years, now we're doing a 2-year extension.
Okay, so we're into the 2-year extension.
That'll be the end of our 2-year extension and the end of that current contract. As a group, we've talked, the TIF committee, we've talked that we'd like to have more clarification as to if we're spending that kind of money, because remember, 75% of that comes out of the TIF, 25% of that comes out of payment in lieu of taxes. So if we're gonna continue to spend that kind of money in that greater Millinocket area, do we want to reword what our contract should be? What are the terms of that? What are we looking to get out of that position? So we wanted to review that contract and get back with you with suggestions on how we could do it, but we didn't know how important that position was to you guys.
How'd you determine the breakdown in 75-25? Because it almost seems like it should be the opposite of that. I mean, it seems like if you're looking at.
Is that a
what
motion?
benefits
Should
you-
we vote on that?
No, I just wonder how you determine that ratio. It seems like the majority would benefit the Millinocket, and then a small amount would benefit the UT. But how is that?
Barbara, do you even remember where the 75 came from? I don't.
I think the commissioners decided that, but I can't swear. It's probably
It
somewhere
was
in the
just
minutes.
because there was money in this TIF district and not much money from the PILT money? Or how much do we get every
We were
year?
just starting to get PILT
What do
money.
we get every year in PILT money?
We were just starting to get PILT money, and there was no guarantee that we would continue to get
Right.
PILT money.
Oh, that's
What's the
right.
amount that we get?
600,000,
No.
Not built,
So originally, we were getting about 360,000. That number has dropped down. I think it's somewhere around 160 now that we get annually.
seems like it was higher than that, but we can take a look. I don't know.
The agreement we had at that point when we started receiving it was we would expend no more than 50% of that year's PILT.
Yeah.
We would reserve, there was some crotchety guy on the commission that didn't want to spend all the money at once. And so we put it into a reserve account. So that has been accruing. We have at times, I think, tapped that account for money. But we weren't sure what would happen going forward, and that's why only a small portion of the PILT was applied, so that we didn't end up with a contract that we didn't have the money to pay.
So that needs to be revisited this year.
Yep.
And come up with different parameters, because we can't prove how many jobs or businesses were moved into the unorganized territory or benefited the unorganized territories, but it benefited the 3 organized towns up in that area, 3 or 4 or 5 of them. So it's just something we need to look at.
Haven't done much for those towns over the long haul, have we, George?
And that's all I got to say about that.
When compared to need,
I think that's your answer.
I mean, it's important, again, in the concept of collaborative regional processes, I think it's healthy for those communities and the surrounding areas in the northern part of our county to benefit. But as Commissioner Marshall has referred to a few times, benefactors of this, or benefitees of this, should also have some skin in the game.
Absolutely.
And we're 7 years into this. We've been fully funding this position, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
It's time to have a hard conversation about what, I mean, we specifically asked for the report, which we happen to have gotten today, showing on a regular basis what was done. But it's not directly relatable to increased taxable activity within the unorganized territory. There's considerable activity here that might have residual benefit to the UT, but it really is, in my opinion, more focused on the organized communities in that area. And I think to be true to the requirements of the TIF document, we need to have a hard look at that. I don't think we need to make a decision today, but we need to make people aware that that's an important
Well,
factor.
that position triggered that question to legal. All the money we've been spending up till now fits the book, no problem. But where do we go from here? So if we got to that $550,000 number, do we now have to stop automatically? Because we wouldn't want to renew a contract if we didn't have money in that category to pay for it. So I needed that question answered. So they did, and that came out all right. So with that in mind, we'll revisit that particular position later.
Then the next item you have is the question of profit versus nonprofit, which I think we would probably, both groups want to reflect on in answering our question when we come back for our next meeting.
Okay, give everybody a chance to think about it, whether we give money, grant money, or loan money, or both, to a profit or a nonprofit.
And then funding preference. I think this kind of ties into that same discussion we've got to have as to if we all agree that we've got the potential of another $5 million coming in, that gives you about $7.5 million over the next 20 years to work with. So I think we build our model based on what we've got for assets to work with, and then look at, option A may be we're going to do all grants, and when it's done, or we will consider the costs associated with loans, and we will consider loans only in these situations, because it is a labor-intensive process, and has been mentioned by several here, what are the optics and the abilities to recapture an asset if the loan payments are not made for whatever reason.
And also terms, like, a 20-year term, who's gonna manage that for 20 years?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right.
Maybe there's a point as you get into this, if we got a 20-year window now, and we are contracting with someone to manage that, great. If we get to 10 years, well, the term of the loan can't go more than 10 years because that's the length. Those are all factors that I think we need to put in the term document. And that may also speak to your concern about competing with private sector lenders. If our terms are not as favorable in some cases because of the time frame, then they may find us not as suitable for their needs as a conventional lender would be.
The interest market, and the interest rates that are fluctuating, and you just have a lot of variables that you need to weigh out.
So I would put it to you folks, do you have any other points that you think we need to reflect on? Or do you think from this conversation, you'd be comfortable going back and meeting and kind of compiling your own recommendations to us?
I think one of the other things that we were interested in, the money aside, is there any markets that you prefer we emphasize? In other words, rescue services versus tourism? And should we be more lenient or less lenient in one direction or another, or?
So you'd say areas to give priorities to for funding?
Priorities, yeah.
Something, the next to the bottom point on the makeshift agenda here is we're looking at trying to start up a scholarship program. It's been talked about since day one, having some sort of a scholarship program for residents of the unorganized territories.
Okay.
And we've copycatted some of what Hancock County is doing. We looked it over, but there was still a lot of questions that we had. So we're not done trying to put together some sort of scholarship program for unorganized territory residents, either for what schools they want to go to, whether it be trade schools or college, or if it's just somebody who wants to take a firefighter course, and we could pay that, pay part of their tuition. So we're still trying to come up with the terms of that. With what you know now about the funding and so forth, is that a viable thing for us to continue to work on, to put together a scholarship program? Because it's only going to affect the residents of the unorganized territories. And if you just look at high schools, there are currently only 12 seniors in high school in Penobscot County from the unorganized territories.
What if the other counties, how they approach this? Most that have.
Hancock County is the one we're looking at right now. Some other counties don't even have this. They don't have a scholarship.
So Hancock does have one.
They do now, yeah.
And how do they implement their scholarship program?
It's wide ranging. You can only qualify for just so many dollars, and you have to pass the course before you get your dollars, and they haven't spent much money on it over the years.
Are those courses oriented toward trades or
Any
basically, or?
Any further education. It didn't have to be just trades, it could be any college.
And how many students do they have in Hancock and Hanover?
I don't know that.
They probably have more
There's a lot of
than we do.
UT.
maybe.
I'm not sure. They might have a bigger population.
Dan? I like the idea, but it doesn't guarantee that that person's gonna stay in that region once they get, with the scholarship money. I mean, what if there was a need and the UT said, okay, if we got, we need more lawyers in the Millinocket area, which would benefit the UT, and lawyers aren't going to rural parts of the state when they graduate. What if we did a forgiveness program? Okay, if every year you're practicing law in that town, we'll pay, $10,000 towards your student loan, something like that. Or some amount towards your loans.
Would you want it to be right in that town, or could it just be in the state of Maine?
Well, no, they have to they have to live in that area, so it would benefit the UT.
It was similar to the student forgiveness
Yeah.
program that they had years ago where
But like Dennis, you're not getting Dennis in rural Maine,
you would be, if you had got, you could get an educational forgiveness on your education loan if you went into an underserved
Right.
rural municipality. And this was throughout the country, and it seemed to work pretty well. I think the only question is finances, how much
Right.
we would have available, given the fact that we only have 15 or so seniors. I think that's something that we could definitely look at.
In order to do that, to manipulate where they go 5 years from now, that they stay in the area or some number.
Well, no, it wouldn't apply to the ones coming in, but say you advertise, okay, we need we're looking for somebody to come and locate to the area to be a dentist, and then you're gonna help them with their student debt at that point. It's like after
To be
graduation,
incentive enough,
it's a
they
retroactive.
would have to pay for a large portion of that,
Yeah,
that scholarship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
you gave them $500
so I
or
just don't sure the
$1,000,
scholarship would really.
It's not really much
gonna
incentive.
benefit.
What about using the interest funds off the money sitting that's unused?
Right.
Oh, is the interest money on a separate account?
No, it's in that number.
Over 100,000.
What does the TIF say about interest money?
It doesn't specifically break out interest money.
So if interest rates are high, we're gaining a large amount. This year, we have $3,000 to offer in scholarships to candidates, or,
I would be more intrigued with the continuing ed idea, so that it gets to what I think David and Dan are saying, is if somebody wants to professionally develop themselves to provide a service within northern Penobscot County, that we would offer them scholarships to take those accreditation courses so in other words, what you're doing is you're talking about.
A sheriff or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, right. Well, that's
Electrician,
especially-
plumber.
Especially the sheriff's.
Maybe they'd be a patrol
fire
deputy.
service,
Right.
EMTs,
Yeah.
they're in
We had
high
talked
demand.
about the firefighters and they have classification firefighter 1, firefighter 2. And they would have to work X within the UT for us to pay for 80% of it or 90% of it or whatever. And you're not talking huge dollar amounts here, but you're talking of maybe being able to funnel people back to the UT, to the volunteer fire departments, et cetera, et cetera.
That to me would seem more beneficial to the UT, not to say that providing a scholarship to a high school graduate or college student would not, but it's probably a greater impact with the amount of dollars you could expend to that cause, as opposed to somebody that's going to have a tens of thousands of dollar college education. That, you can't guarantee that there's going to be somebody that will hire them in northern Penobscot County once they come out of college. So just speaking for myself, I think the continuing ed scholarship has more appeal than the college scholarship. And I'm not saying that we would prohibit people using it to go to a, say, community college or something, but I think if there were maybe a blended program where you could do some level of forgiveness for those who located, and then some level of scholarship for continuing ed, that might be a better use of the resources than we're going to go to the high school and hand one of these 12 people. Because if you got only 12 people right now on average to choose from, it's a pretty good pool to say, I'm going to get a scholarship of some amount from the county, which has no guarantee that they're going to come back. Nor would I frankly want to say to someone who goes and gets a degree with that they're now obligated to come back to northern Penobscot County if there's no job opportunity. I'd rather find somebody who says, I'm living in the UT, and I want to be a volunteer firefighter, or a road contractor, or heavy equipment operator.
What about offering a scholarship or funding for municipalities or fire organizations that already have people that need to have certain training, but because of the limited funding or the volunteer basis, or could you offer a scholarship to fund that type of?
Well, then
Yeah.
you're looking at picking and choosing. Different organizations, can be not
I don't believe we have any
A lot of
municipalities in the UT, do we?
Well, true, but, but we have the municipalities outside that service the UT that come for funding, so that's what I was thinking, is those fire services.
But don't the municipalities pay for those people to go to do the firefighter? The firefighters don't pay their own, do they?
Unless there's free money that you could get in a grant to pay for it.
Right,
No, usually
they
the
do,
municipalities pay for,
Yeah.
They do, but they only have generally a bucket of X per year, and
Right.
they choose, well, we'll send 2.
right.
They, 5 might need it, but we'll send 2. And you'll have to wait till next year to see.
I think the general sense is we would support scholarship / forgiveness type of loans,
some type of proportional,
but more so for people who are occupation oriented as opposed, and this is not to disrespect anyone who wants to go to college, but the use of this resource to benefit the UT looks better served if we're doing some level of continuing ed as opposed to, does that make sense?
Because if you're talking about, a 2-year school or a 4-year school, and you make a commitment to a high school graduate to go 4 years, then you're probably gonna have to commit to a 4-year scholarship of whatever X is. And we sort of had the idea that it would be better for training purposes.
I think I would concur, I don't know about you gentlemen.
It would be a lot less money, and it would be a lot easier
and more
to
focused.
administer, because right now, the more caveats you put in it, it's harder to administer.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, we've got D.
Keep it simple.
We're gonna wind up paying D quite a bit here.
Okay. So just in the interest of time, have we covered most of what you folks had a question on, or there's
The
some
final
other?
final question was about marketing this money, letting people know we have this money available, and have we done a good job at that, and is there a way we can make some changes and improve that? What do you guys think? I mean, you've heard about our meetings.
Find out whatever's out there anyway.
I think we're trying to slow the spread to make the 7,000 or 7 million last.
Yeah,
I don't know that.
I think the core issues to me are, how much do we agree we have left within the 20-year time frame, if that's the period we want to use? And how much of that do we want to allocate to straight out grants versus do we want to consider loans? I guess that's the other question. Do we want to just look at this as it's all grant money, or do we want to look at this as a blended grant loan? And I think if you can provide some estimates of what loan management might cost, that will help us decide whether that's worth the investment. And then we've got the question of, do we limit this to so much per year? Or do we say, you can just keep putting as many applications in? I think it's unfair to you to know that you're gonna have to say no to, each year a higher percentage of those because of the money that potentially is left. I think we should have, as I said, a 10-year plan that sunsets and requires the next commission to look at it 10 years from now to address where we're at. Do you gentlemen have any other thoughts? I'm appreciative of your time and the input here. Do you have anything else to add? Kenny, you got any thoughts? You have some of these requests that we kind of asked about. Okay. So within,
Just to clarify, when we were doing introductions, I missed Brenda over in the corner. Part of the TIF bylaws is that our finance director here at the county and the county administrator are members of our TIF committee. So Brenda Palmer we didn't introduce her, and then Tina.
Congratulations.
You didn't even
It's
know
a
that.
job she didn't know she had. And Tina sat in the corner away from us. Tina Morrison's our deputy director.
And our grant manager is Wendy Dana.
Yeah, we can introduce the rest of them in the room if you want. Appreciate your time, gentlemen. It was time well spent. And if everybody's done with their questions, I hope we come away with this.
Well, let's say within the next week to 10 days, we do combine emails that go out to the commission and the TIF committee with some of these points that we've raised here, and then plan 60 days from now, follow up.
Would that work for you?
Okay, good. Thank you. I believe your lunch is patiently waiting for you over here if you're so inclined. We appreciate your time and the work that you do for us on behalf of the county and the TIF. Okay. So we are now returning to our regularly scheduled broadcast. We do. So at this point, I would entertain approval of the minutes from the April 15th and 22nd meeting.
I move to approve the minutes for April 15th and April 22nd.
Second. I have a motion and second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Next is public comment. Do we have anyone online, Tony, that appears to want? Okay. Anyone in the audience that would like to provide any public comment on topics not associated with the agenda? Seeing that, I will close public comments. I think we have the UT again. George, it's so nice to see you as Tina. Where have you been?
Tina's handling the salt bid. She took charge of the salt bid this year.
Okay? Just as an FYI, if there's no objection, I am going to, following the UT, move to the sheriff, because I know he has a 1 o'clock commitment, and I want to be respectful of the scope of what we have here.
Would you rather,
Want to do him now?
yeah, I
Sheriff,
think you
would you
should.
like to do that
I was
now?
gonna recommend that before you, yeah.
We'll take you in front of the, before the UT.
Yeah, they have to wait till, you gotta wait till 12:45 anyway, so,
Oh, good point.
yeah.
We know where our regular is.
Sure. We're down here meeting you face
This
to
is
face.
like being down with the real people. I'm so glad that Dan's on board, so now we can have some down there.
That's right.
Thank you.
Sheriff Morton, I believe we have bid openings on an all-wheel drive cargo sport van transit. And that's not it. Look at this.
Hot off the press.
Only I had my letter opener. Commissioner Marshall Costa steals from me. Did Balaji take his with him when he left? We're missing it.
While you open those up, sir, I'll just remind you that we struggled, as you know, trying to find vans for a long time post-COVID. We now are comfortable, what's really good, as I believe, both of these will actually be local vendors that can provide this van. One of our vans has 255,000 miles on it.
Thank you for the supply stewardship of that vehicle.
Yes. The other one has 130,000 miles on it. The only reason we got to 255 is because the engine blew into the motor in it. So they're both in very bad shape. It's good that we have them online.
Yeah.
One will require an insert that is by a sole source. The company said there's only one vendor in the entire state who is down in Wyndham. Super nice gentleman that can be installed up here locally, but it will be purchased through him down in the Wyndham area. And that's why we had to spec out this particular van. So we only need the insert in one. The other one will be a more of an open concept.
We have two bids.
It's like two.
So these are vans.
So this is two separate bids for two vehicles.
Two vehicles. Essentially,
So
the vans are the
currently,
same.
I have opened the Quirk Auto Group. It says in stock unit available. The bid cost for a 2024 Transit cargo van E2C T-150. I'll give you all the other numbers. Is for $2,897, subject to availability at time of award. Otherwise, it's $57,750, according to the grand total here.
That's the problem.
No, that's Quirk. What is Quirk?
This is Quirk. So it's, if available, it would be just under 53,000, 52,897. Otherwise, their standard, or manufacturer standard retail price shows for this vehicle at $57,750.
It's a $5,000 savings somewhere.
That is the Quirk, quote.
Oh, yeah,
The next quote comes from Quality Vans, which appears to be out of Phoenix, Arizona.
We going, you're not gonna go get that?
We're gonna get that, yes, sir.
I'll go get it.
UT is gonna pay for it, but we're going.
Road trip,
Where was it, Arizona? No?
I got relatives.
I don't think you're going to Arizona.
No, I did,
Transport van prisoner transport, if I'm reading this correctly, what is the insert cost?
The insert's about $20,000, but we only need one because one van's gonna be kind of open. The other one, because we board so many prisoners, this will allow us to separate females and males and others inside the van. So we really think we can, that's what we have for our setup right now.
Number one,
One insert, two vans.
20K.
Yeah,
So the quote from Quality Vans, if I am getting this right, $122,640.
I like two of those.
that includes airfare to Phoenix.
I'm not sure it does.
This was the challenge that you'll see in this industry of transport vans. I saw this at a couple of the conferences. They were really crazy money.
Probably has super air conditioning in it.
The Ford Transit was spec'd specifically for the insert. Two other counties use that same insert. And because we do have a divide, transport supervisor did say with a basic cage that protects the officers, we'll have the other one as an open concept, which is really more for just running back and forth to the courts. It'll be easier that way. We do have money because we've been waiting since COVID and hopefully not having to buy from out of state like that. We do have this money on our balance sheet to purchase both.
I don't think this requires consideration, further consideration.
Okay.
We ready to move?
Do you have a
Yes and
comment?
no. Yeah, I was gonna move approval, but just subject to the sheriff's department making sure this meets all bid specifications. So not a blanket approval,
Yeah.
but
Move
making
for
sure.
Board of Augusta.
Right, for it.
Second.
So it's not Ford, it's Quirk Auto Group, but it is their Ford division. Quirk Auto Group's bid of $52,897 if on the lot, $57,750 if apparently it has to be ordered in. And that's for a 2024 Ford cargo van. So I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that might be the case, because he did have one on the lot, so I appreciate, I think he thought he might get the bid, so
Okay.
we might be able to get that.
Jail medical RFP update and discussion.
Yep, just an update real quick on that. Scott helped us with Lieutenant Raymond get that done, put together the specs and got that out. We do have a timeline. So as you know, our medical contract expired January. You approved a 6-month expansion of that to allow us to go out to bid. I don't know what type of appetite there is, but we did send it to all local medical facilities, also posted it as we normally would through the RFP process. What we did clean up in this RFP is to help us on both, a couple things. One is making sure that Matt is part of it and making sure that the pharmacy part is there. We feel like any medical provider that comes in, what I'm hearing from the other counties would like control of the pharmacy aspect of this. It will actually take off a lot of work for the county managing, because we're literally going through every man. And I think this is a more economic way for us to manage it. So that's really just an update that this is going out to bid. There is a Time process here, there's a pre-bid, so it's already gone out May 1st. Pre-bid questions, whatnot, May 13th. Deadlines, May 16th, or May 19th. We'll have it in front of you folks on the 20th.
Yep, that was the plan.
Yep. And then we'll go from there.
Okay.
This is the entire medical services, in-house nursing, medical,
Do
does
we
not,
need any action on this issue?
No, just a clarification, Sheriff. Yeah, it was May 20th if you're all set, but you had on like till June 20th if you needed to, the deadline to meet with the commissioners if you had a review.
okay,
Like if you had multiple, I think, yeah, Raymond, that's what Raymond, Lieutenant Raymond said, so, yeah.
yep, that sounds appropriate.
So, by the way,
Yeah, I don't think there was any action, I just wanted to make you aware, and then also, obviously, this is a chance for us to speak about it publicly. Interest of people in our medical contract, it's out there, and it's an important part of what we do.
How's it advertised other than the Bangor Daily?
was it
How else besides the Bangor Daily is this?
Bangor Daily, it's on our website,
Okay.
I'm looking at Mary Ann,
And-
but yep, that's typical.
And our lieutenant spent an entire day calling every hospital to try to get a contact person, so that we could fairly say Northern Light, St. Joe, PCHC, HCS, whoever else. I think there was 4 or 5, mostly local folks would actually at least get to see
Be
it.
aware of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner, that's kind of what we do sometimes with the vehicle bids and stuff, so that, because we don't want somebody to miss it by not seeing an ad or something. Next thing I would like to just quickly mention, most of you are aware of the Robbins Rule. That still process is ongoing about what does that look like, releasing individuals who do not have attorneys. So that brought some concern, also with some modifications to bail laws. We're releasing more individuals on bail than we ever have before. I worry because I think we're taking a greater risk at releasing some. And so we looked at, and we currently have contracts with Securus to provide services inside our facility with phones, video visitation, and some other technologies. Securus has the ability to do electronic monitoring, like the ankle bracelets. We've been somewhat opposed to those in past years because there was such a cost of equipment. It also felt like if a person was such great risk to the public, they shouldn't be out. But with the changes to the law, I feel like this could add to potentially protecting citizens out there when we put electronic monitoring in, so we know where individuals are. At one point during our pretrial contracts or pretrial review, we had 140 individuals out on pretrial, which is a good program. Sadly, 40 of them, they had no idea where they were. And that's because we're taking a greater risk through this process. The courts are taking a greater risk. And so I do feel like this is good. Sometimes waiting on these programs makes sense. This program has changed dramatically. We did have a vendor through Securus, because we already have a contract with them, meet with us. We do not have to buy any of the equipment. They provide you the equipment. You're only charged for daily use. We believe that we have a mechanism to pay for this. If we were able to run 10 to 15 people a day on this, which I think is a little aggressive, but it could be less, this could be about $10,000 to $12,000 a year. To me, it sounds like a pretty cheap investment to really provide an extra layer. I think what this does is it helps the courts when they're making decisions on whether to release somebody or not. Here's another little extra layer of, okay, this is a wise thing. There was even a portion of this, speaking of new technology, we've recently seen a couple cases in the news that somebody was released and it was alcohol related, serious violations, and they violated 2 or 3 times when they're out. In this daily check-in, in this device, you're actually looking into this device, taking a breath sample and being seen on video at the same time. And it's incredibly cheap. The services, again, we're not paying for the equipment. We guessed, just trying to play estimates, that there may be 10 to 15 people in this program at any one given day. That might be a little aggressive to start out, but it could grow. And I think it, again, gives prosecutors an option. It gives defense counsel an option to argue for, here's a way to go. here's one thing that I think makes the most sense for us. We are housing people at the hospital every single day. Sometimes 2 and 3 people at a time. And we have to staff that with staff. I think there are occasions where this ankle monitoring, electronic monitoring makes a lot more sense that we utilize that than staff on certain offenders, depending on their classifications of crimes. So to me, I think I'm just making you aware of this, letting you know. My only question on it, I guess I mentioned this to Scott, was that we have Securus as a current vendor. This is an add-on to their programs. Do we need to go to an RFP or not? I was not totally sure on this.
The specialty service.
It is specialty, but there are a lot of there's a lot of brands and a lot of companies out there. There are quite a few. They're not local.
How long a contract would you have to sign with them?
I would think most of the contracts with these companies, we've just done 3 and 5 years for vending, for phone service. I
They
think,
perform all the equipment, they provide all the equipment?
yeah, this is the difference with this organization, is it's much like, as you know, our video phones in the jail. We couldn't have afforded that on taxpayer money. That comes out of fees. And that's kind of how you get this equipment for free. It's a lease, but it's not a lease, I guess. So if it's 3 to 1 capacity, it's $3.49 a day.
So would these other companies that might be interested, would they do it as a standalone or without having the other county business?
Not really sure.
Yeah.
I haven't explored it a lot. And
We could just do it, I mean, I'm sure they'll do it, I mean, it's tough for them because their price is already out there for people to know what they.
that's the challenge a little bit for us, because we're already part of an agreement with them that's a contract that's 1 year into a 3 or 4 year contract.
Okay, that's my question.
Yeah, I think we're 1 year on it.
When you have,
At least
when
a
you-
3 or 5.
When you have staff attending an inmate in the hospital, they're with them 24/7, right?
Yeah.
Are they generally in the room or outside the room?
Inside the room. It depends on if there's a procedure, there are certain rules behind female inmates. And as you know, you may not know, but we had there's a change in the law about pregnant females and
Yeah.
restraint. We had a pregnant female in a room, of which the law says we can no longer have officers in there and they can't be restrained, and she ran away.
Yeah, and so other non-pregnant inmates, are they cuffed to the bed, or how are they handled?
It depends on the classification of the individual.
I think that the fact we're looking at here is, do we want to proceed with a single source vendor that we currently use? Would they sign a limited, like a 1 year contract, or would they require?
We could certainly ask that, but I know that there are other companies no different than us, right? It's hard to do a 1 year, and honestly, you just turn around and doing it. I do believe that their pricing was based on the fact that we're a current client.
And I would be in favor of modification of the contract, especially for the amount. If it was a larger amount, I'd say we should go to bid for that amount.
But it may not even hit the 10,000.
Right.
And that's the truth. Because I'm a conservative person, so I was looking at the worst case scenario. We're guessing 10 to 12 in that range. It could be, because we're halfway through the year already, right? We're getting close. And we may only have 5 or 6 people out a day. It's kind of like the PACE program. Until we educate our judges, prosecutors, and defense that here's a potential capability for those people that are kind of caught in between of, should we let them out, should we not let them out? Right now, they're holding people in jail, or they're releasing them, they really shouldn't be released, without a little additional protection to say, hey, I need you checking in with us daily. This would allow that. This system also has protection for victims. There's zoning. So if you're a victim of a crime, there's a zone. If they get within such a zone of that person, a notification goes out. And technology is incredible, and I do like the model. I don't know about the other companies, but I like their model that we're not out front buying stuff and setting it on the shelf and waiting to use it, and then all of a sudden, it's expired because it's like your cell phone, it's obsolete 3 years later.
So am I sensing we're ready for a motion on this?
Yes,
Okay.
I would move we proceed with the,
What is this?
Securus? Yeah.
Yep, it's our current vendor.
the monitor.
Securus electronic monitoring system.
Yep, second.
Have a motion, second, further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor?
All right.
It is unanimous.
Thank you, commissioners, for a lot of reasons. I think this is the right thing. I just want to update you really quickly on patrol. We're full, first time in a long time in patrol, we're full. We have one individual away on the second deployment for military, so we have to leave that position open. So that leaves a gap there. We have 7 down in corrections, which is a lot, but it's certainly better than the 25 that Scott and I and others dealt with years ago in HR.
What do you, I mean, you obviously had some challenges in the past, and this is encouraging. What do you credit for? What techniques or what are you doing that is helping?
I think, I initially thought it's money, we gave, we made fair wages for corrections sometimes statewide, not just us. But honestly, this kind of happened away from the money. I mean, it's happened well past when the wage adjustments have come in. I think I owe a lot of this credit to my staff, HR, the county, for trying to employ different ways to go get people. So we're not just, I mean, Indeed's working and those things are working, those are all helpful. But you're kind of waiting for people to apply.
Right.
HR is supportive, when Michelle was here and certainly Tony as well. We're going out to events. We've been going to storefronts and standing up out front and talking about what we do. We went to Corinth, we went to the Bangor Fair, and we've gone to different events just to go to people and don't wait for them to come to you. And it's kind of surprising. We're doing a lot at the schools. So there's been some impact there, but it's tough when everybody's competing for good employees.
Okay, the Guy on board yet? Is he on board?
Yes, yeah. We have four deputies, 2 with extensive experience. Another positive, I guess, with the state of Maine after some complaining is when we have officers who are willing to come to this state from out of state, there was a process of getting them approved, their outside academies approved. It makes sense that they've got to go through a basic course here, Maine law updates, Maine crash, some things like that. That makes sense. A few years ago, they'd only done like 19 approvals in a year under Director Jack Peck, who's down there, who's been great. He was a former chief of police in the Farmington area, worked on the Maine Sheriff's Board for a long time. They just approved 58. So this is, let's speed up the process. Let's not just bring people in, because Maine has a I guess it brings light on when people talk about law enforcement training in our state, what's it look like? Maine has one of the most rigorous ones there are compared to other states. And that's why when they're looking at other states, you may not have near the training. They're putting people on the road with a lot less training in other states. And interestingly enough, like this gentleman came from Massachusetts. Massachusetts had 4 or 5 different academies. So it's not like we can just always say, yes, we accept all Massachusetts, or you have to go look curriculum for curriculum. So we're excited, although 2 of the deputies, literally first day here, responded to a pretty serious event yesterday in Herman. And we did make them aware that we want them to get right engaged day one and not, that's the word.
Letting grass grow. Okay. Did I miss your ARPA expenditure?
That is to come forward, so I didn't put that on here.
Okay.
I just brief conversation with Scott to say that we need to clear that up and bring that back. Your last message to me was,
And this would be approved expenditures for the sheriff's department from the...
Yep, you had an approval, and that was in February 27th, or something like that, and here was your approved amounts. The messaging back between the administrator and I is, you've been approved, don't go purchase yet, let's make sure that we realign what we need. We're in a position where I need to purchase, and so what we'd like to do is come back with a fresh list. I can give that to Scott, he can share it with you. But we do there's a couple items we've got to move on, but there will be some adjustments in it. And then lastly, I had on my list, you may have it on another list, the opioid fund committee discussion.
Yeah, that was just a simple one, Commission, where we have blessed this, but apparently no official vote was taken.
Oh.
So if you can make that happen.
So this is
We
related,
talked about it with the EMA vehicle, and, yeah,
Okay.
Mary Ann came to me later and said, you never really officially voted. The sheriff hadn't presented that yet, so.
okay, so this, we had you taken under advisement, you're coming back now and telling us that Colonial has the best available.
Well, here's the thing. What you're really voting on was the ability for us to order.
Correct.
We will come back to you these are for 26.
Yep.
So we will come back late summer, early fall with our budget. I would think that's the time that you're actually gonna say 10, 9, 8, 7, whatever it is, the need for vehicles. This approval was only the ability to actually let these companies know that we're in the market for vehicles, because if they don't, just what happened to Quirks, they've actually had to pull out because we didn't meet their timeline, and they wouldn't even be able to order.
Right.
So when it got down to it,
They still bid on it though later.
they will still have to bid. They will still have to bid with a price. That doesn't change. This was merely, hey, can you?
So you need us to approve that part of it, so?
I think this motion would be to approve
Proof with the ordering.
with the order.
No,
For
ordered
26.
up to, well, you ordered up, did you?
10.
10.
Yes,
Then we
Include the
move-
truck.
station wagon. I saw a new one the other day.
I would move approval of asking Colonial Motor Group to order up to 10 vehicles
For the 2026.
by 2026.
Yeah. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Colonial Motor Group for our order of 10 law enforcement vehicles for 2026. Further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, and then the opioid committee, you had a recommendation for us.
Yes, so I appreciate the work that's been done by the commission. Again, I applaud you for the way that you handled your ARPA funding. I thought that that was fair and equitable throughout the county, and I assume that the opioid funding would be similar, and that each of you would have a representative from your district. I was a little confused, and Scott and I had a good exchange of emails the other day about his involvement and my involvement, so whether I'm a committee member. Okay, just to be clear, that's fine. I'm good with either way. I do feel like it's important, we've seen this across the state, and it makes sense that we have somebody with some lived experience, somebody who's working in the field. As you know, I work with a lot of the groups that are coming into the jail. I came up with a half a dozen names. I probably come up with a dozen names if you wanted. But I do feel like I'd like to recommend one. I've already spoke with the individual, it's Angela Walker. She actually is employed over to the barn. She has lived experiences. She also is a strong advocate for the barn and the work that's done through the barn. I think having her voice here as we review applications or whatever process that you develop for the opioid funding might be nice to have that ear. Obviously, she wouldn't be voting on anything that the barn brought in or something. She could abstain for those. But I think that she comes with a vast experience. This lady has done some impressive stuff. I've known her for many years and watched what they're bringing forward to the jail. Her voice is well received in the community. And so I think it would be nice to have that outside person on this board.
My nominee, Randy Jackson, has personal background and history with that. That's why I nominated him. But I would welcome this, expand the committee to include it at the other commissioners' agreement from Barn. I think that would be acceptable.
So is that the form of a motion?
Yeah, let's do that as a form of.
I would second, so do we need to, is there an actual document that defines a committee? Do we need to amend that?
No, not at the moment.
We
There are notes.
constitute the committee and then
Yep.
they come forward.
I would think, commissioners, as a point of discussion, that I do feel like a small definition of what the committee's directives are, because you want to help this committee be able to understand what is the expectations from the commission, how often are they meeting, and what's their marching orders from you. That has been developed. I looked at some of my board of visitors stuff, and they've talked about this on some of these opioid fund committees. So maybe a small, we don't have to get into it too deep, but it would be nice to have a
Maybe we've got an
small.
example from other counties that we could look to.
Yep.
Well, I think the quicker the better. I think very quickly, as soon as they meet, they should just come up with some parameters of how they want to see the money spent. I mean, if they want to see so much percentage spent on this, prevention, some money in recovery, whatever, and then get the applications out there quickly for people to, have a standard application process. It's simple, not burdensome for people, but I think we need to get the money out there.
I had approached Randy in my district, and asked him to do this a couple months ago to work, and he's working with Gary Bees out of the Save a Life Foundation in Lincoln to come up with a small 2-page application form to bring to the committee as a starting point. So that's already there, and you can use that as a basis, and then incorporate or massage that as the committee sees fit, and then bring it back to us. I think that would be appropriate.
I think the administrator already has a meeting set up.
Yep, May 12th, we're gonna talk about that later, but we just, a couple snippets here is, next Monday, we're going to meet the first time. I can tell you they're very excited to date. They have many of their own ideas, and I kind of like Commissioner Tremble's approach. I think some of the goals and objectives are already set with what the monies can be used for. So I'm just gonna kind of gather some notes from them, bring it back to you, and see what your thoughts were on that. Mr. Jackson has submitted to me an application. That was one idea as to what type, how complex and whatnot. So, yeah, it's an action. We got her going.
Good.
I think you have
So
a
we
good.
have a motion right now to include Ashley Walker, Angela Walker, as a member of the committee at the recommendation of the sheriff.
That's established as a 6-member committee.
Yes.
But not all of them are voting members, correct?
I think at this time it was intended to be.
They
Okay.
were intended to be voting members.
Okay. So they all gotta get
It's the
that?
commissioners of the deciding vote if it ever
Yeah.
comes to a tie.
Okay.
To me, that sounds appropriate. This should be a recommendation to the commission
Okay,
as an advisory group
Right,
as opposed to
right.
an approval group.
understood. Okay, so we have a motion to,
Second.
and
You
a second.
Oh, I made the motion.
You motion.
You made
yeah,
the
I didn't-
motion, Dan has, I
didn't hear,
believe,
but,
made the
yeah,
second. To appoint Ashley
Miss Walker,
Walker.
Angela.
We'll take Ashley too.
Angela Walker. Okay, any further discussion, clarifications? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anything else for the good of the order, Sheriff?
Nope, thank you, Mr. Uti, for letting me jump in. I do appreciate the work they do.
All right,
While the sheriff is here, and I sent an email, and only because I saw the chair looking, did you want to address that item now with regards to the barn? Or is that something?
That's,
I think we'll take it up in
Okay.
your report, but
Okay.
we've had discussions. Thank you for your
Thank
comments
you.
on that.
Great work as always. I like this being down low like this.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes.
Yes, I wanted to bring it up. Thank you.
Yep, UT.
okay, that's fine. I got
Well, long time no see. I believe at this point you're ready to move into your agenda items. What would you like to do first?
We have a gentleman or two waiting in the room to hear the results of the bid. I'd like to take the bid up
Understood.
first and then move to the public hearing.
Appreciate your patience. We will now take up the bids. The first one I have is New England Salt Company.
All right.
These should be carefully stored in a mason jar on the administrator's top shelf, right?
Kind of, sort of.
Again, first bid is from New England Salt Company, Winterport, Maine. Total tons southern region, $72.49. Total tons northern region, $81.03. And that's New England Salt Company, Winterport, Maine.
All too busy opening, so good, sure.
The next bid comes from Eastern Salt Company of Lowell, Massachusetts. The total tons for the southern region, they put in a number of tons. And they've given us a price per ton.
Price
price.
Except 39.
Everybody bid on the same amount of time.
Okay, all right, because that was not
We were
shown on
looking for
first
the
one.
price per ton.
I understand, I just wanted to make sure we weren't restricted in some way, but Southern Region, $93.45 per ton, Northern Region, $103.95 per ton. And that is the, this is Morton, what happened, oh, you're opening it there. The next one is from Morton Salt Company of Chicago, Illinois. You got another one that you just opened there.
Yeah, one here.
Southern Region, $78.10 per ton. Northern Region, $88.05 per ton. That was Morton Salt of Chicago.
This is Cargill.
Cargill. Wichita, Kansas. Cargill. Actually, their address is North Olmsted, Ohio. And there's no number in the bid form. They have broken it down differently based upon the towns that are included in here, and I assume the highlighted ones are the UTs because they all look to be unorganized, and they've got the vendor name that it's going to. So
I'll figure it out.
Argyle was $60 a ton, Grand Falls and Greenfield was, Grand Falls was 60, Greenfield was 90, Grindstone was 90.
Those are tonnage.
Those are tonnage amounts.
Are they just saying they're not gonna bid? They may just have the cover letter may say they're not bidding. Okay, they didn't fill out the bid application, they don't qualify. I got a feeling they're probably not gonna bid.
Regrets that we aren't, okay.
Oh, okay.
Is the New England Salt the current vendor?
Okay.
Oh, did
New
you,
England,
you read
Who's the
that?
current vendor? New England Salt?
no, Morton's our current vendor, but New England Salt was our vendor for several years.
Yeah.
Done a great job,
Yeah.
a great job.
Okay, so that's Morton.
That's all the
Cargill.
bids?
You have two others, there were 4 bids.
Oh, there's one?
The other two,
Three, four, yep.
Well, we clarified, 3 bids and 1 regret they were not bid.
Yes.
Those are the bids?
Those are the bids. I'll take a motion to take that under advisement.
Is there
We
any
can-
reason to?
We have no reason to take it under.
I would move we approve it.
We've
to
worked
New
with New
Salt.
England
Yep.
many years and have
So,
had
okay.
excellent service. I would recommend New England Salt based off
All
their
right.
price.
We'll move, we accept New England Salt
At the rates
at
quoted
the
for
stipulated
Southern.
bid.
Okay. Have a
Second
second?
if you need a second, which we already.
Yep. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Unanimous. Okay.
Thank you.
I think we've got a liquor license hearing for New England White Water Center,
Yep.
doing business as Katahdin Resort. Okay, I'll open the, well, do we need to take the hearing, or are these folks?
This,
at the 5-year
this
limit?
is only their second year
Okay.
with a license, so
Yeah.
after 5 years, they won't need a public hearing, but for the next few years, they
So
will.
I will then open the public hearing on the renewal of this liquor license. Is there anyone here speaking in favor of the license? Seeing none, anyone here to speak in opposition to the license? Seeing none, anyone here to speak neither for nor against on the license? Seeing none, I'll close the hearing. Okay,
I move approval of the renewal application.
so we had no problems.
Law enforcement reports no problems.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for a renewal of this liquor license. Further discussion, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Done. That takes care of those two, and now we're at fire protection agreements for East Millinocket. Discuss, approve, and sign.
Fire protection agreement with East Millinocket was 9,200 for years, and now they've gone up to 10,000. So we're excited they didn't hit us any harder than that. It was a negotiated price with the chief, and the board approved it. So we're glad with that price.
Okay, so we have reached a better level of communications on this issue.
Excellent level of communications up to this point, yep.
Did a great job on that. Thank you for your work and working, thank the town of East Millinocket for their cooperative work in this endeavor.
Do we want a motion on accepting?
I move we accept.
Have a motion to accept, have a second, further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And it's at the $10,000 level. The ambulance agreement.
East Millinocket, this took some agreement, we were all involved in trying to figure out where to go with ambulance service from East Millinocket. They're still up in arms with which towns they're actually gonna service. We don't know which Medway's coming on board, they're not positive Woodville's coming on board. But they've given us that contract at $26,000 and change, I don't have the number in front of me.
$26,701.50.
Which is up from $9,200 last year. And we knew there was gonna be a large increase based off all the communications and meetings that we've had with them. We're fortunate that it's no higher than that. And they give great service. They've done a great job with us.
Helps to have four-wheel drive ambulances.
Plus their ambulances.
Okay. Have a motion regarding the ambulance contract for East Millinocket to cover UTs.
Move we approve the agreement with East Millinocket for the ambulance service.
And this is a 1 year?
It's a one-year deal. With fire and ambulance now, we're only getting one-year deals.
1 year deals, okay. So we have a 1 year agreement at $26,000 for East Millinocket to cover ambulance service in the designated UT areas. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous, thank you. Food sovereignty order.
This is an easy one. You've already voted to accept the food sovereignty with a change, with a caveat. You wanted a 2-year renewal. So Roger and Winchell helped us out and wrote in a nice 2-year renewal to the exact same ordinance that you approved. It just added
It
us.
sunsets in 2 years and has.
Sunsets in 2 years and
doesn't
has to be
automatically
reviewed.
renew.
No, it has to be reviewed in 2 years.
Okay, great.
So we just need you to sign it, but you've already approved it, so we thought we'd bring it to your attention.
So it's time for signatures, okay. Do you have a copy you would like to pass around to us?
Yep, coming right forward, I've got the two Millinocket
Commissioner, you may
contracts.
notice that there's a reduction in the amount of paper we have to sign at meetings because Mary Ann has very kindly agreed to
There we go.
DocuSign our warrants and our, thank you.
Okay, this
We're
is
still antiquated up in our office. That's the liquor license.
Okay, give me that pen back when you're done. Now we're talking about 2025, 2030 septic disposal agreements.
By state law, unfunded mandate from the state tells us that we have to have a licensed disposal facility. Every town has to have a licensed disposal facility and a contract with an agreement with them to accept any septic disposal from any septic company coming out of our towns. We don't have to pay for it. We have to pay for the license. We have to pay them to hold the license, and they have to pay the license holder for their septic disposal. So we have an agreement with the firm up in, just outside of Sherman, and they've done a great job. They do land disposal of septic. We've never had one of our contractors or one of our residents take material there, but we, by law, have to have this legal agreement. So we were really fortunate that they only, because we haven't used them much and they haven't had to do a lot of work with us, they've only done a 1% increase each year over a 5-year contract, which was really well received by us anyway.
Super. All right, we have a proposal for a septic disposal agreement for the next 5 years. Do I have a motion?
move we accept.
I have a motion to accept, do I have a second? Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
You.
Okay,
And the last thing on your list is the Epic contract. We're not ready here today to move forward with approval or acceptance of it yet. We're still waiting for a draft copy from Tim Pease, our lawyer, he was gonna write in some protective liability changes to protect us going forward. So we haven't received that yet. But we wanted to let you know that we're still working on it.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you for the work you did on our lunch with the UT committee.
Thank you.
Maybe you'll get to eat it sometime.
Yes.
Thank you for
Be lumber.
work on the installing rocket deal.
Yeah, we were fortunate. They were good to work with after we had the original visit.
We're appreciative of that, yeah. At this point, Director Tenney, if you'd like to come forward, I'm gonna give people 2 or 3 minutes, since we've been at it for 2 hours, for a personal break.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Right now, or?
yeah,
Oh,
right
okay.
now. I do want to note there was information in the public comment provided to us. Since it was not an agenda item, we did not take it up, but I do want to recognize that there was something in public comment. How are you today?
I'm great, and you?
Excellent. And Mike, I'm going down to Stevens, to look at schedule there. We're doing the luncheon tomorrow at noon time. Independent consistency that will be advocating for the
Okay.
there's not technology down there to be able to play things that I want to. On the surface screen or.
I know RCC has a projector. IT department themselves, we don't have anything like that. You could see if Director LaVoy would let you borrow his projector. I'm sure Trick knows where it is. We usually borrow it whenever we do anything on the 3rd floor.
And you are also aware that we are seeking options to move
Yeah, I've been working with Hillary and I ordered something to be able to mount the owl candle to the ceiling.
Nice blue sky.
Pretty much everything else we need is already here in this room, so it's just relocating and plugging everything in.
They have a portable screen down there, I see.
They do already have a TV. I'm gonna call it a crash cart. It's really not a crash cart. It's a mobile TV stand. I don't know if it would support the 75-inch, but they do already have a 50 or 55.
I don't think we necessarily need it, but I think since this room will be reallocated potentially.
Yep.
If there was a cart suitable for that to go to the 3rd floor.
And there is. I have a price for one. I haven't done any research into it. There is one that I found that was about $600. And I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it looks like 75-inch on it.
I think what we would hope to do is, with the new equipment we have, be able to obviously transport our board or have a board down there in probate, but also have the ability that it might be portable in the event that we want to go to the 3rd floor for a larger meeting, for our budget committee.
So with that in mind, I would probably leave the TV down in probate and then just buy a second mount and then just leave that up on the 3rd floor.
That's what I'm thinking is, yeah, we don't necessarily need that larger screen in that room, I don't
That
think.
little room, no, probably not. That probably might even be too big.
Yeah, I think that would be suitable for use on the 3rd
yeah.
floor in the future.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah,
put that in your radar screen for.
I already have a tab open with the, so yeah. And it's not terribly priced, like I said, it's about $600.
What's your recommendation involved in that for you? I mean, it's not difficult. In your opinion, is it?
To move everything to the probate court? Absolutely not, no, it's quick and easy. Like I was saying, we already have all the equipment we need, minus a couple pieces that I've already purchased. So once I have all the equipment, I just take everything downstairs, plug it all in, and show people how to use it.
Okay.
It's,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
a whole lot of work to get everything moved over and set up.
What other good news do you have for us?
If I could, Jim,
Sure.
real quick on that topic, is that something, like if I'm scheduling meetings, a couple of important meetings in June, and if we're down there, it can't be Tuesday, correct? I'm looking at the register, the probate register, so.
I think we are considering a change to our meeting day.
Right,
So Wednesday is a potential day that we
Even
might
as far as
consider.
Tuesday's available for any other questions other than questions.
Right, if we move down to the probate room, then Tuesdays would be out, so
Tuesday's out for
Yeah.
anything and everything.
do we wanna give it till July, the July meeting before we do? Do you wanna push it towards June, like make it happen? I heard it was, would you be ready by the second meeting in June?
Brian?
I would not.
Okay,
Brian would not, okay. So let's target for July.
what, okay,
July, Brian?
I'll do the best I can, and
Well, we'll
this
see.
is on my list to talk about too.
Okay, all right,
great.
yep. You will definitely be
Oh.
for July.
Easily.
We'll talk later if it's gonna go up that, yeah, thank you.
When's the city going?
Yeah, because all I have to do is move the computer downstairs, move the owl camera, and then just plug everything in. Like, that's all I have to do, so.
All right,
Awesome. Okay,
RFP.
I believe that is the general consensus of the commission is that we would be ready to move when the space is available. Okay,
Cool. I appreciate you guys fitting me into your, quite packed agenda. I'm just coming to get approval to post an RFP to upgrade our website.
okay. And is everyone comfortable with what they have reviewed so far? I would entertain a motion to approve the RFP going up.
I would so move.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anything you feel you need to tell us at this point, or is it pretty well stated there?
For the RFP, it's pretty well stated.
Okay.
I will be upfront, I've reached out last year to a couple different companies. So I already know kind of what I'm looking at if they were to apply for it.
And they would design and build it, or they would give you the framework and you build it?
They would design and build it. Yeah,
To our
Alright.
specification.
right,
which
yeah,
is-
obviously we'll be
yeah.
a part of the designing process and we'll say, we want it like this, or we want this, or we don't care about that, you do whatever you guys want there,
Right.
but they'll make it cohesive across the entire website.
I believe that a number of counties have moved to the .gov domain. Is that something that would be,
So we can certainly move in that direction. I think with our history of being on a .net, I don't think it's really worth it to move to .gov. I think it would add confusion to people trying to email us, because they're still gonna be used to .net, and we'd obviously have to keep that going forward because of the emailing. If it's a direction that you guys would like to move forward, I can certainly start doing that, the legwork on that. But that's just registering a domain and putting the website to it.
One of the big items of that, I went through it in another county, is due to security.
Yeah.
And when you and I talked about this, you mentioned that we're working on the, what do you call it, sorry?
cybersecurity?
No, the double
Oh,
authentication.
the two-factor.
Yeah, two-factor authentication,
Yeah.
which would provide the security and,
Yeah, that, two-factor is gonna secure your account so that, like, if I had your password, I can't get into your account. But .gov really just makes us look more official. It doesn't actually help us with security. It just makes us look like an official government business. So, yeah, it's-
Okay. But we have a pending motion related to the approval of the RFP. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Is unanimous?
right, thank you.
did we want to discuss streaming the commissioners meeting at this meeting? Or did we want to talk about?
You need, yeah, I'd like for you to come up with some, solutions, like, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have my handful already. I'll just write up an email and send it to
Yeah,
everybody.
the question was in regards to the, is it Facebook?
Yep, so
That is
Facebook.
going away from streaming, go ahead.
So Facebook currently archives historically all of our streamed meetings. They're getting away with that. They're stopping doing that. So we have a couple options, not to bog down the meeting any more than it needs to be, and I'll send everybody an email. But we have a couple options. We can either look at not streaming anymore, we can look at going to a different platform. So I'll write it all out, not to
That'd be great.
prolong this.
Okay.
Yeah, what is the point that they're going to cease that?
I don't remember the time frame right off the top of my head, but it's pretty soon that they're just gonna stop. I think they're gonna hold it for 30 days and then they're gonna delete it off the page. I think is.
So we can still go Facebook Live, we just wouldn't have the record of it, right?
Right, we can go live, it's just not gonna hold the video.
Yeah, they're just not gonna hold the archived stream on Facebook. We could download it and keep it for ourselves and stuff like that. Like I said, I'll send an email.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess within that, Brandon, is just looking at what the the time frame is in which we should retain the video copy versus the minutes. I think there's the legal aspect, but also the reasonable aspect of what is of value for people that view a meeting, you know, whether it's a year.
But once you download, you can put it on the website, people can always see it there, right? So it doesn't sound like, we'll still be able to get
a
it.
platform to store it on.
We could,
We can put it on our website.
we could keep it on our own
Right.
and make it available.
Yeah.
I think that would create
That's what
storage, like storage issues or storage.
Yeah,
There's a lot of clouds, but
yeah, we would be taking up storage. Over time, it would add up. We could create a YouTube account and just stream to YouTube. They have pretty much infinite storage, so.
I think we need to keep
Why don't
these,
we let you put it in an email with your recommendation?
I can do that.
we'll bring it back.
I don't think we need to keep these ad infinitum.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll look forward to that email.
Sounds good. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. At this point, I believe our ARPA,
Here, if I could.
okay.
We have Mr. Donahue, who's been sitting in there waiting patiently, and it's an item, it will be item K, United Way, it's under me.
Yep,
They have requested a release of their funds, 100,000? It was from the ARPA interest.
okay, so they're ready to move forward with the project.
Yep, I believe they're, maybe Matt can come up and give just a quick summary, update.
You can turn on your mic if you would.
Will do. Yep.
And that,
Just say pull it a little, snuggle up to it a little bit.
Yeah,
if you want.
no
There you go.
problem.
All right.
I'm not shy. Yes, well, good afternoon. Normally see you in the morning, so
yeah,
hope you enjoyed your lunch.
eventually.
Eventually. We are thankful that we did find a property that suited 90% of our needs, and we are under contract on that with a closing set for June. So we are moving forward and really excited to work alongside our county and city partners and other funders to bring this to fruition over the next year.
Great, well, congratulations.
Thank you. Multi-year project in the works.
Yeah, are you able to share yet or not yet?
I did share with
Thank
you
you.
folks, but I can't
Publicly,
share
yeah,
publicly.
I understand.
But
That's fine.
you should have access to that. I can talk to you.
Well,
after.
we're pleased and we'll look forward to future reports. Can I have a motion regarding releasing the
If we
funds?
need to, I would move we release the funds to you anyway.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
All right.
Thank you all.
See our finance director sitting here, so I'm sure she will facilitate the move, as long as Wendy approves.
Much appreciated. Thank you all.
I think the ARPA director still has to, grant manager, still has to solidify some paperwork with you, so once we get that, then.
All right, so.
I believe that was DocuSigned, but I will double check on our end.
Good, yeah.
Okay, once we get that, I think we
Sounds
wish you
great.
well.
Thank you very much.
She is the gatekeeper for the appropriate paperwork. We
Absolutely.
Greatly appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.
Okay, so we will now return to our regular broadcast and bring forward our ARPA director, our grant director.
We do have a 1:15 meeting, I don't see
understand
Mr.
that.
Hughes yet, but yep, okay.
How long do you estimate that you may?
Just, it's up to how many questions you ask me.
Okay, so anything we can do in 5 minutes? Come on
Can you ask in
down.
5 minutes?
You might get 6 or 7 before, as he walks through the room.
Okay.
Okay. Greetings.
Greetings. Now, did you send them these? Okay, so you have the
ARPA
spreadsheet?
subrecipient.
Yes.
Yep.
I guess it'd be easier to say, do you have any
It's in
questions
your-
about any of these? Anything that is in the forefront of your mind that you're worried about or that you wanted answers
Do
to?
you have any concerns on any of these, man?
I don't. Everyone seems to be, finally, like, things are really beginning to move for many people. Obviously, because we're getting into better weather too.
Yeah.
Some of the projects that required that are starting to go forward.
We have a meeting with PCA, so we want to touch on that.
Oh, we do, yes.
So that's a big one, it's still, yeah.
Right, that one, the PCHC, the transitional program that they have.
Yep.
We do have a meeting with them this week so that we can go over their plans, because that's the one that hadn't started yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe they wish to adjust their plans, which the summary view looks like probably a better idea, but the magnitude of it, that's what we need to go have a chat with them to find out the magnitude of it and bring it back here, whether we need to have a, bring them in here, have a full board discussion, or, so that's what our meeting is about.
So we will await your report back from your meeting.
Yep.
I don't think there's a reason to get into it until they clarify
right.
what their plans are.
Yep.
Also, oh, I'm so sorry, go ahead.
No, that's quite all right.
Also, I know that Commissioner Marshall, you received this email as well. It was just an update from Patent Library. Just that, that they were happy to inform us that a lot of the funding that they've been looking for, they did receive the Seawall Foundation monies that they were hoping to get. So now they're at 90% of where they need to be for the funding. Now, our ARPA award was contingent upon them getting all their funding. So it was just to let us know that they are moving in the right direction and that they only need $550,000 left.
They've done a tremendous effort on their part, they're to be congratulated.
Speaking of that, if you take a look at the lower part of the first page and the second page, those highlighted in orange, where these are projects that have been completed to date. The work that the commission has done is really, you started looking through this going, wow. That doesn't even count the commissioner one.
Yeah, and you provided a nice report to us which broke down the core areas that we had made allocations in.
Right.
Out of the roughly close to $30 million, it generally was a third that went to county-related, either wage-related issues or capital improvements. Another third went to housing and some of the nonprofit world, and then another third went to the recovery and other associated services. I think, from my standpoint, it might be appropriate if you've gotten some examples to maybe put together a press release sometime early summer to just highlight what we've done.
I've been gathering information. Scott and I were just talking about that too, putting together, the young people call it a slide deck nowadays. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, it's not an overhead projector.
I would call it a PowerPoint, but apparently I'm old. But I'm putting together something like that so that we can look at the various projects where we have, a blurb from them discussing how it helped them, what work was done, pictures. So it's actually been really fun going through some of the information that I've received, and it always feels just so good to see what has been done. So I want to do that, and it would be nice, and if you even want to talk to anybody about it, we can put that forward to you as well.
Commissioner Marshall needs to take a trip to Maxfield and get us some pictures.
Well, I'll tell you, I did visit all of the pending sites in the Millinocket area to see their status. I know they've been delayed for a host of reasons, including workforce demands and things of that nature. But they seem to finally, with this weather, things seem to be finally afoot. And I'm happy to see that progress.
Super. Anything further questions? This is a helpful report, thank you.
Okay, good. And you're great with this was the other report with the capital projects. So I separated them out so it wouldn't be so difficult to
I think it's helpful to just have this, incrementally during the year, maybe quarterly like this. So as we look at some of these smaller things, we can make our rounds and perhaps check and see. Most of those are of a nature that are gonna get, I'm sure.
Just clarify, the third page is county expenditures, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, I guess we're good.
This is a take home.
It's easy.
Steady. There you go. At this point, I believe we are ready to go to an executive session on property acquisition. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Here.
So at this point, I would entertain a motion to go into executive